Welcome to the Lowcountry Revolutionaries, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of Charleston, South Carolina's vibrant entrepreneurial scene. I'm your host, Bill Billotte, founder of Veritas Exoscience, and each week we're spotlighting the boldest innovators from the Chucktown startup community. These are the visionaries pouring their heart and soul into the businesses that are transferring Charleston into a global hub of creativity and American ingenuity. Get ready for raw, real conversations with the trailblazers shaping our city's future. Let's dive in. I'd like to welcome Holly Hillman. Holly founded Soothe Sailing in 2024. It is an immersive, meditative sailing experience. Her wellness retreat includes guided breathwork and meditation, all while listening to the wind in the sails and the waves lapping against the hull. Sounds wonderful, Holly. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Bill?
I'm doing good. I'm super interested to hear about this. You've got just a crazy, interesting background. You're like a captain for you've got like a 100-ton master captain license. You're a yoga teacher. You scuba. You got all this going on. So tell me what drove you into this Soothe Sailing business here.
Yeah, so my journey, I like to say that I'm a bit of a reluctant entrepreneur. I never necessarily planned to have my own company, but it seems like everything on my path has kind of just led me to this place of it all culminating into this business. My background, like you said, is definitely a bit diverse. My passion, in life, since I was young, was always more actually focused on animals in the natural environment. And so that kind of led me down a path where I grew up in a small town in upstate New York, and I joined the Navy to, see the world, but also mostly to get an education.
Nice.
And I kind of used a lot of the resources they had while I was active duty for 6 years to get an associate's degree while I was in. And then, once I got out, I kind of just continued that educational pathway, working towards animals more than anything. And so I became a registered vet tech. And then I went on to get my bachelor's degree at Ohio State in animal science and wildlife management.
Nice.
And then I moved to South Carolina and I became a marine biologist, and I was working in oyster restoration. And, this was about 8 years ago now. And that was the first time I'd ever driven a boat. And that was really the first time
Navy veteran, first time driving a boat. I love this.
People always say, I'm like, I really was never on boats. And they're like, oh, that's right. I was on an aircraft carrier for, 3 years. But that doesn't feel like it counts because it's so vastly different. And I certainly was not
on the water, right?
Yeah, it is. It really is. You almost don't even feel like you're on the water. You're just kind of like, oh, I'm at work and I happen to be on the water.
Right.
So it's kind of wild that it took me till relatively recently in my life to even kind of connect to that water connection by driving boats. Now, I had always loved the water. I was I've been certified as an advanced scuba diver since I was young. I've felt passionate about the water. I was kind of a beach baby growing up. I was in Corpus Christi, Texas. We were on the beach every day. Water.
Right.
That was my whole childhood, and so it was a big thing for me. So when I moved to South Carolina, one of the things I learned, number one, was I got my hands on a boat for the first time, which it wasn't something I felt wildly passionate about in the moment. But with my job at DNR, the Department of Natural Resources, I also found my voice. So there was a lot of public speaking.
Right.
There was a lot of talking to groups and educating, which was something that, I was the girl growing up that if I knew the answer to 2 + 2 was 4 in the classroom, and I raised my hand very timidly.
A little introverted, right?
I would black out. I was black out. I was so scared, even though I knew the answer was 4 and it was fine. And then I would stars, So the idea that I was actually able to now find that voice and find the confidence in what I was talking about, because it was something I was passionate about and educated on. I learned, when I worked as a biologist, I can reach other people, and I can kind of translate science and turn that into something that they might become passionate about. Now, one of the things that a lot of people here in South Carolina might not know is natural resources and environmentalists are not necessarily wildly valued, as in our salaries are basically non-existent, right? So I living in Charleston, South Carolina, one of the most expensive cities, around, making 30 grand before taxes. So, everybody at DNR has other jobs or multiple
Oh,
incomes in their
nice.
homes,
Yeah.
roommates or spouses. So a lot of us, we're cater waiters, or we, take our naturalist information and apply that elsewhere. So I became a kayak tour guide.
Oh, cool.
And then I also, around that time, had found the Warrior Surf Foundation, which is a
Right.
local nonprofit that brings surf therapy to veterans and their families. So I started surfing. So I was connecting with the water in different ways,
Right.
kayaking and surfing. And then a friend of mine, she turned me on to sailing charters. I didn't know this was an industry until maybe 5 years ago. Literally,
Right.
anytime I saw a sailboat, I thought, oh, that's a person that owns that boat. I didn't know you could just charter them and hire them for fun. And so I'm like, well, I don't know how to sail. She said, well, you just need to know how to talk to people and serve them drinks and hang out and have a good time. I said, I can do that.
You can
So
do that. Yeah.
I started sailing, and, I kind of caught the bug, and I ended up, doing a bunch of offshore deliveries, with a friend of mine, and I caught the bug even more. And when you go offshore, especially on a sailboat, one of the things you really connect to and with is the natural rhythm. Like,
Right.
you're out there, you have no cell service, you have nothing else really matters except for what you're doing in the moment, and how the boat's handling and what the weather's doing. And so sunrise to sunset, moonrise to moonset, you're on 24 hours a day, and you're
Right.
really, really tapped into that nature thing. And so, all these things kind of started to come together for me. Now, once I decided to get my captain's license, it was kind of more a thing I was doing just to do. I, again, wasn't really planning on working in the industry. I, at the time, had, during COVID, I went back to school and got my MBA to get into consulting,
Right. Right.
sustainable consulting. And, but I was kind of still sailing in the background, and I decided, well, I'll get the license. I've got the hours and the time and, the stuff. So I might as well file the paperwork. And then I ended up losing my consultant job. And that was kind of one of the pivotal things for me. Is like, it happened around spring, and that's when charter season kind of picks up. And I said, you know what? I think I'm just going to go sailing all summer. This was 2013, I think.
Wow.
And I said, okay, or not 2013, 2023. I
Yeah.
lost 10 years in
Yeah.
there.
10 years. I was like, wow, you did
Like,
that
hold
for
on,
10 years.
something's not adding up with that. And so I said, okay, I'm just going to go sailing all year and see how that goes. And I loved it. And I worked on as many boats as I could. And I got, as much experience on different vessels and with different captains. And I, was kind of waiting on getting my license in hand during that time. And once I did, I said, okay, I think this is somewhere I'd like to spend some time. And what I started to see more and more on these sailing charters is, I don't know if you've ever been sailing, Bill, but when you get that sail up and you cut that engine off, there's a little moment that I would see, like, people's shoulders drop. I would see, like, they would go, oh, that's so nice, when the
Right.
engine's off and it's just quiet all of a sudden, right?
Right.
And they go, oh, wow, that's nice. And I said, oh, that's a cool little moment. I want to take that and make it bigger.
Oh, cool.
And
I love that.
yeah, and I also saw, this always cracks me up, when I describe it, it sounds not very kind, but people make small talk, right? It's our natural thing that
Right.
we as humans do. And they're on my boat, and I'm, driving, and I'm in the cockpit, and I would have these people that would come and sit with me in the cockpit, and they would just the whole time be asking me, where are you from? How many brothers and sisters do you have? Like, what's your deal? Blah, blah, and the whole time they're locked in on just me.
Right.
And it's very sweet and kind of them, but I'm like, guys, you're missing the whole thing. You're like sitting here talking. You haven't looked out at the water once, you
Right.
haven't maybe stopped talking once or put your phone away once, and I'm like, maybe just, like, sit and enjoy, like, where you are. And also, you're paying a lot of money to be here. Like,
Yeah.
why aren't you just, dialing into this? But it's the human condition. It's like they felt rude. I think a lot of people feel rude not, doing those things. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to make people sit, enjoy this moment, and during that year of kind of like, let me see if I can make this industry work, I also received a scholarship to go become a yoga teacher
Oh, nice.
through the Warrior Surf Foundation, actually. And so I kind of then had the idea for wellness focused sailing, and I had seen this kind of formula work with surfing, and I've seen it with, other modalities in recreational therapy. And so I thought, surely this must be happening in
Right.
this industry, especially because there are a few boats in the Charleston Harbor that are named certain, like mental healing, Om charters,
Right.
everything Zen. Like they have the name built in. So I'm like, they must be doing this already. And a little bit of research quickly showed me that nobody was actually doing it, not in
Right.
Charleston, and honestly, not almost anywhere else either. I've only found two other charter companies so far
Wow.
in the United States offering something like this. And I said, oh, shoot, I guess I need to do it then.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. I guess you're
like,
gonna do it.
I was a reluctant entrepreneur because I wasn't going out like, oh, I'm going to start this business. It was more like, oh, no one's doing this. And I think it's important because to me, and I think a lot of people, especially sailors, one of the things we all kind of know is being on the water is therapeutic.
Oh yeah.
And that's a feeling that we have. But then there's also a lot of science behind it. Wallace J. Nichols is a marine biologist who wrote a book called Blue Mind that is entirely just chock full of case studies on the science behind why being on, in, or near the water benefits mental, emotional, physical, and financial health. And so I was like, there's so much behind this. I can't believe it's not happening. So that was kind of where the seed was planted for me, and I started the business. I filed the LLC technically in 2014.
Right.
That first year I really was just kind of getting proof of concept, so to me, it is a very simple thing that I'm doing, right? It's just, we're going out, we're doing basic breath work, we're doing meditation, which, really is mostly, I think people can be intimidated when they hear meditation thinking they're on a pillow doing a thing, and it's really just like it's an open eye observation of like how to stay in the moment. And I'm using nature, and I'm using the water, and I'm using the sailboat, as the tool, which is,
Right.
I've got all that already in my pocket from all my days as a biologist. So it's really just kind of bringing everything together, and then after the meditation, it's basically just like, hey, just sit and look at the
Enjoy.
water, relax, and you've got
Yeah.
journals, and you've got snacks, and you've got your cucumber water. So just like be here in this moment and try not to look at each other. And honestly, the biggest thing that I do on these sales is I take everyone's phones away from the minute they come on board. There's
Right.
no phone. And that's the simplest thing. But by the end, after we kind of sit there together and I say, hey, how'd that feel? 9 out of 10 times I hear I needed permission to do this,
Right.
to sit and not talk. I needed permission to not look at my phone or to have someone take my phone away, and it's such a powerful, simple thing to me, but we're not always good at doing those things for ourselves.
Right.
And so
Absolutely.
sometimes it takes another person saying, okay, we're not going to do that.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
and
it's very much
it.
about, to me, it's like, and I love this story. It's like, to me, it's about kind of exploring a lost skill or a lost ability that we have, which is the ability to be present. I mean,
Yeah.
it is, until you've been present, and I think a lot of people aren't very present these days because there's so many other things to distract yourself with, phones and
Hmm.
computers and whatever it could be, other people even. Uh,
Yep.
you don't appreciate it, and that
Yeah.
sounds awesome that you're kind of helping people kind of reconnect with that.
Yeah, and I think like one of the other like really simple things, it's funny you say that about, the distractions we have with, a lot of times we think of it as screens,
Right.
because that's the easiest, and
Sure.
honestly, 9 out of 10 times that is what it is. But you said even with other people, and part of like that silent kind of reflection period of time on my sales, one of the main things I say to people is, don't look at each other, even like don't
Yeah.
communicate with each other. It is a silent thing, but also don't look at each other, because even visual cues become such a big moment of communication, and distraction.
Yeah.
It's like if I see you looking at something else and laughing or smiling, then now I'm looking at what you're looking at, and now I'm looking at you, and I'm trying to figure out what is it that Bill's got going on over there. What am I missing? Like,
What am I
instead of just
missing?
instead
Exactly.
of just being like in my moment going, oh, I don't care what Bill's looking at or doing, I'm kind of in my lane. And so it's kind of funny, and we do have this, this culture, especially I think with women in particular, where we share everything. We're kind
Sure.
of told there's a lot of things that are not, it's like it's selfish to keep things to yourself, in a lot of ways, is a message that I've heard a lot in different iterations. And so I always say, like, maybe you see that dolphin out there, that one's for you,
Right.
and like you don't have to share that with anybody else. And maybe the person next to you is going to see it too, and that's great that they do. But like you can also just take that moment and that can just be your moment, and
Right.
there's no obligation here to like say, "Hey everybody, did you see that? Look at that." And it is very fun and bonding to share those moments with each other, and that is the human condition again. But it's also important sometimes to just keep in that little lane and not have those other distractions and that need to like, do whatever. You can also just kind of connect with that moment with yourself and with the nature and the thing that you're observing.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes I kind of feel like a lot of us are kind of, in a sense, to use an analogy, kind of drunk on connection. It's like,
Hmm. Yeah.
just oversharing of so many things. It's like, really, I don't need to see a picture of the food you're eating one more time, right? Just as
Right,
an
right.
example, right?
Yes. I don't need to know your thoughts on everything all the time,
Yeah,
no
I
matter what.
really don't want to
How
know.
you feel. I don't need the 20 posts you're making today about nothing.
Yes,
Yes, keep
yeah,
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But no, you're right. And for better or for worse, right? Technology, has brought us together in a lot of ways, but also pushed us apart in a lot of ways. And
right.
so with Soothe Sailing, it's taking that technology away, and it's kind of that forced, okay, we're going to be immersed in nature. We're going to dial back into ourselves a little bit, and using the breath and using this kind of stillness, and just reflection to do that, which for
Wow.
me felt very intuitive. And
I,
apparently a lot of
I
people are like, wow, this is crazy. I'm like,
Yeah, I can
okay.
imagine it's going to make some people a little uncomfortable because maybe they haven't been disconnected from people in a while, or media or whatever. So I'm sure that's just an amazing experience for them. It's like, I was looking at your website before, and I'm going, okay, how the heck is she making this work? Because and I'm an engineer. I'm also a biologist, so I'm like
Yeah.
coming at this from all sorts of weird angles. And so I'm like, okay, is she going to teach me how to sail the boat? And I have to sail the boat and also, look at that wildlife. What if I crash the boat? How am I going to do this?
Oh
I
no.
mean, I've sailed on a little bitty boat
Yeah.
on like a, yeah, I'll say a lake kind of thing,
Yeah.
but not out in the ocean. I'm like, is she just going to
Yeah.
turn people loose? How does this work? So tell me more about this, Holly.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Yeah, no, you're not sailing the boat, and neither am I. So I am a captain, but in these instances, I am more of a facilitator, and
Okay.
you, as a guest, are honestly what you're doing is sitting in a beanbag or sitting on a cushion and just enjoying sailing. Like you are
Okay.
not going to have your hands on the boat. I have a captain that's going to be doing all the work back there,
Okay.
and then we're just going to be kind of enjoying the ride, so to speak. Yeah,
That's
it's
cool.
it's not scary. It's not um and I do think some people are a little intimidated by boats, and definitely by sailboats, just because it's not as common, right, for people
Right.
to get on a sailboat as maybe like a little center console.
Yeah.
But it's very gentle. Yeah. And all you're really doing is just sitting and breathing and enjoying some snacks, and that's it. Yeah. And so it's not scary. You're not going to crash the boat, I promise, because you won't be driving it.
That's good. So let me ask you another question, because this is another place where my mind goes. How about the wave action out there? Is it fairly calm? I haven't been out in the ocean
Yeah.
here next to Charleston. My last
Yeah.
experience was over in the, well, I guess I don't know if it's technically Mediterranean, but off of Italy.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
was a bit choppy there where I was. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, how is it here? Do people need to take Dramamine before they come?
Mhm.
What's the experience
Yeah.
going to be like?
These are very good questions. Yes. So we really just stay in the Charleston Harbor, which is a pretty protected area.
Oh,
It
okay.
doesn't, it doesn't get too choppy. Now, on occasion, it will, but really when I'm looking at taking people out on a Soothe sail, I'm looking a lot at the weather. I'm looking a lot at the
Okay.
conditions. I'm making sure that it's not going to be stressful, because I will tell you what, that first year when I was getting going and I did a couple freebies just to get some friends out, some people to get some feedback and whatever, the wind was kind of honking a couple of those times, and the
Right.
boat was a little bit keeled over, which is very normal in
Yeah.
sailing, and it's actually it's very safe. That's what the boat is designed to do. But when you're trying to like tell people to relax,
Yeah. Yeah. And
maybe
they've
not the
never
most
been on the
relaxed.
boat that's leaning. They're
Yeah,
like, wait a minute.
like, oh, they're trying to like sit still and like, holding on. So, okay. Like, so it was a lesson learned, right? Okay. Well, there are certain conditions we're not going to go out in because it is too actually distracting from what we're trying to accomplish.
Right.
Now, that being said, there are a couple different types of sailboats as well, right? So there's a mono hull, which is kind of that traditional single hull. When you think of a sailboat, that's probably what you think of, but there's also catamarans, which are a lot flatter, more comfortable. And so I have, I don't own my own boat yet, but what I'm doing really is chartering other boats. I work for several different companies as a captain already. And so I have relationships with several of the charter companies in the Charleston Harbor. And so what I'm doing when a group comes to me to book a sail is I look at the group, I look at what they want and their size of the group in particular, and then I pick the best boat for that experience.
Oh, cool.
And I look at who's available as well. And so I have a couple catamarans, which are,
super flat.
For
It's,
certain,
stable,
like
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I also have some monohulls. And so it's all a lesson in like, what are the best conditions weather-wise? What's the best condition boat-wise? I don't think Dramamine is something that anybody really would need. But I do know some people get a little nervous and uncomfortable. I always say the thing with Dramamine though is like, if you're going to take it, you got to take it hours before, the night before, the morning of, like, some people come out and they're like, I brought Dramamine with me. I'm like, it's too late.
Yeah, too late.
Now it's just like, a mental thing, but that's fine too. Even if it's a
right.
Take it.
So,
yeah.
So on the sail, is it you're staying on the boat the whole time? There's no getting in and out of the water or anything like that?
Correct. Yeah. So what we do is we meet at the marina. I walk everybody down to the boat. I do like a quick grounding exercise on the dock. That's when I kind of like do a little bit of breath work, just a little like calm your nerves, calm your energy, all that excitement of getting where you're going.
Right.
And then I have them come on board. The captain does a little safety brief, as per the Coast Guard. And then I basically just get everybody settled into, a comfortable seat wherever they are. Kind of usually have cushions and spots set up for them to kind of assign themselves a little seat. And then you pretty much just locked in there, for the sail. We're not getting up and moving around, we're not doing yoga on the boat. We're not getting on and off the boat. You're really just kind of in a comfortable seat, and mostly what I do is I say, during the breath work and the meditation, I kind of have people kind of stay where I have them sat initially, the little seats I have set up for them. And then after that, during that kind of silent reflection period, which lasts about, an hour or so, maybe a little more than an hour, just it kind of depends on the timing of things. Then I say, if you want to move around and find a different seat that is more comfortable or that has another view, or you do want to kind of get away from everybody and go to the back of the boat or go wherever, you can move around, as much as you'd like at that point, as long as, you're being safe about it. And we kind of discussed the safe ways to move around a boat. But otherwise, you're all just kind of staying on board, and most people just kind of cozy up and settle in. In colder weather, I have blankets for everybody.
Nice.
And in hotter weather, I do cooling towels that are infused with lavender, so it's like we try to keep everybody comfortable, as much as possible. Charleston summers can be a little bit hard, for so some people then, do kind of like, oh, I'm going to move into the shade over here, or, I'm going to do this. They're all able to do that, comfortably. So
very nice. Yeah. It's that's like, especially July and August, we all know down here it can get brutal. So
yes,
I have to ask a very Charleston question. I think I know the answer for this, but just for the listeners out there, because I know somebody's thinking this. So beverages. Charleston's famous for having great mimosas, but it sounds like it's more of water and those types of things going on in this wellness thing. What is the options for people?
Right. That is actually probably one of my top questions. So because I'm kind of focusing this on being more of a wellness experience, what I do offer, everyone comes to the boat, they already have a water bottle with cucumber water ready and waiting for them. And they have a little, healthy snacks, think like cucumbers and hummus and, little veggies, and so when people ask me about bringing alcohol, I have been a little bit hesitant because I do want to focus this on being a wellness experience, but I also realize that it is, it isn't always common that people get to get out on a boat. So this year I am kind of starting to bring in a little bit more opportunity for that, bespoke experience. If they say, hey, we also want to like pop a bottle of champagne or do something like that, what I end up kind of doing then is tailoring it a little bit to each group, right? And saying, okay, what we can do is maybe we can shorten that, silent reflection period, or we can take out, this, or just kind of like condense that a little, or add time too. Normally these sails are about 2.5 hours. So, hey, let's shorten that reflection. Let's add on a 30 minutes on the end. And that'll give you guys like, a little over an hour, so that you can, have a drink and hang out and just be social. One of the things I do find is after the kind of reflection and we kind of kumbaya and come together and I say, hey, how'd that feel? And usually we have about 15, 20 minutes on a normal sail for kind of socializing. And that's when I always ask people, do you want your phones back? And no one ever does. And it's really, really funny.
That is funny.
It is one of those things I do think like once you get out, you realize like it's nice to disconnect. But I do realize that people want to socialize and have a little cocktail while they're out there sometimes too. So there's room for creating the experience that you guys want.
Nice. One more kind of oddball question here. So what if you have yourself or one of your guests has some type of handicap, like they are in a wheelchair or need a cane or whatever it may be? Is that something that you can help facilitate so they can participate in everything too?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. I think in instances like that, what I'll end up doing is, obviously talking to the individual about their specific limitations. And I do, because I have several vessels available, I do feel very confident in that we can find one that will make it work, especially the catamarans. Again, they're very flat. There's lots of room there. So, depending on what their mobility issues are, I mean, the biggest issue most people have is just getting to the boat, which is walking down the docks, and then once they get there, it's like just getting them on the boat. And once they're on the boat and we can find a comfortable way to seat them, most of them, all of the monohulls have comfortable cockpits. So, they can kind of just stay there. You don't need to be on the bow of the boat, Titanic style, and the catamarans have lots of, deck space and lots of comfortable seating. So really it's just a matter of, can you get down the docks and can you get onto the boat? And from there, we will absolutely be able to find a way to make you comfortable.
Perfect.
Yeah. So
now the really interesting stuff, because I'm sure everybody wants to know this. So we're out here on the water. We're in the harbor. So what animals am I going to see? What kind of wildlife? I'm going out. Am I just going to be looking at water and buildings? What am I going to see out here?
Yeah, I mean, so this is for your bird nerds for sure. So we see lots of birds, especially, nesting sea and shore birds. They're all over. There's an island in our harbor called Soothe Sailing. They're coming and going from there. But our heavy hitter, of course, are our dolphins, right? Yeah. So we see dolphins, on, I would say 9.9 out of 10 sails, we see a dolphin at some point or another. Right. Of course, it's not a guarantee. I always say if you come out saying, I want to see dolphins, they listen and they're going to hide. So be cool. You got to be cool about it. Like don't look them in the eye.
Yeah.
But, this time of year especially is great because it is dolphin mating season, so you might see them get a little sleep, but also calving season. So we're seeing baby dolphins out. We also see sea turtles. I've seen eagle rays launch out of the water. All kinds of things. Yeah. So even deer. One time I've actually seen a deer swimming in the harbor, which is very rare. Very rare, but it does happen. They swim. It's crazy. But a lot of birds for sure. And I am always happy to be that bird nerd to point out what species we're looking at.
Oh, that's cool. So you can give like the, use your wildlife, natural resources experience to narrate. It's like, that's such and such type animal. I'm a biologist, but I'm not that kind of biologist. It's like consulting. I'm a consultant, but not that kind of consultant. It's like I was more on the molecular cellular side, not on the ecology side. So I'm about clueless about animals and stuff, but beyond just like regular general knowledge.
Yeah. No, I always tell people if you want to feel crazy, when you see like seagulls out there, if you open a bird book and you look at the seagulls and turns. There's like 2 pages, and I swear to God,
There,
it's the same
it's the
like
same
50
bird,
times.
right?
So,
Exactly,
and you're
right.
like, how do people tell them apart? It's so you can go a little bit crazy if you start getting into that bird world, but
Oh
I don't
yeah.
necessarily recommend it. But it is a hobby that will capture you at a certain point, I think, if you let it. So,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
it's amazing, and we do have like we have great wildlife around this area. It's like even where I live in Somerville, like we have tons of hawks and all sorts of swifts and all
Mm.
sorts of things. So that's great.
Oh yeah. Bald eagles out there. Yeah, there's a ton
Yeah,
of beautiful birds. So,
yeah, and I imagine the wildlife really adds to beyond the water and being on the boat and all that kind of adds to like helping people kind of be present because it gives them like, hey, I don't see this every day where I am kind of thing, right?
right. It does. And I think, as nerdy as it is, like going back to the bird thing, I think part of what's really fun about getting into the weeds with some of that is a lot of people, when they see a lot of these birds,
Yeah.
they just think it's the same bird or, oh, it's just a seagull or, oh, it's whatever. And then I go, oh, no, actually, that's a least tern. And it's like this. And then when you watch it, when it dives and it comes out of the water and it does a shake and it looks like a dog when it does it. And it's really cute and funny.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, I've never noticed all that before. And I
Right.
never realized that that little bird was like actually different than all these other birds that I see all the time. And so then, yeah, they are kind of like locked in on that little thing and observing it in a much more astute way than they maybe normally do in their day-to-day life. And so now they can maybe walk away from the boat. And, really what I want for people to do is walk away from this experience and recreate it in some small way in their own lives. Not
Right.
everyone's going to be able to get on a sailboat every day of their lives, but you can sit in nature every day and you can look at what that bird's doing, or you can look at the water and the way the ripples are moving when the wind comes across it. And you can kind of tap back into those things in your own life in a variety of environments. It doesn't have to be on the deck of a sailboat in the Charleston Harbor. And so
Right.
it's kind of like, hey, take this experience, bring it home, and bring that mindfulness into your life and use the bird to do it, or use the water to do it, or whatever it might be.
That's cool. So, let me ask you this is kind of like a business and like a wellness question. This is a combo here. So,
Okay.
say you have a group goes out, does thing, loved it, was great. What do you do if that same group comes back a second time? It's like, hey, we did this before. What are we going to get
Right.
to do different now?
Yeah, well, so each experience is different inherently. It
Okay.
just is. First of all, I do tailor the breath work to whatever, the energy is feeling, whatever the group is feeling.
Okay.
So there are different exercises that we can also do. It's not going to always be the same exact thing every time. So if I know last time we kind of did a box breath or this or that, maybe next time we're going to do a different breath. And then also, because the meditation part is so much about observing the world around us, it's going to be different, every single time, because it's not a script that I'm using. It's not just whatever. It's looking at the environment that we're in and talking about what we're dealing with. Now, also, when it comes to wellness, quite often, there's different ways you can approach things. Are we manifesting bringing more things in? Or are we trying to let go of things
Mm,
that are no longer serving us? Right.
mm,
And so you can also kind of focus on different messages and things that I'm going to present to people to kind of help challenge them a little bit in what are you trying to accomplish today? So whenever we start out our sale, I do tend to have people set an intention
okay.
that they don't share,
You're right.
and so that might be different for you. On a day to day, on an hourly basis, on a weekly basis, what do I need to bring more of into my life and what do I want to let go of more? And so maybe on that first sale, it was one thing, and on the next one, it's something different. And so we can also kind of like dial into more of that.
Right.
With groups that want to be more repeat customers in that way, I also am kind of formulating some, not curriculum, but kind of like this sale we're going to focus on manifesting, this one is going to be letting go, this one is going to be grounding in, this one is going to be,
Nice.
and the kind of verbiage and breathing is going to be kind of tailored to each of those different
That's
kind of concepts.
that's cool. So, we have some friends of our family and stuff that have struggled with some things like PTSD and similar types of things from their past experience. Some of them are veterans, and but law enforcement, same kind of thing. Um, is that is that something you kind of help out as part of this? I mean, I don't know if you do it formally or informally, but how do you deal with that kind of situation?
Yeah, I mean, I do try to be mindful of who's coming to me and with what experiences.
Okay.
And so the part of how I kind of gather some of that information is I do send out an excuse me, an intake form
Oh, cool.
that kind
Okay.
of lets people know, like, where are you coming from? What's your experience with breathing and meditation? Have you ever done it? Are you a pro at it? Like, where are we at? So that again, I can kind of tailor the experience to the
Right.
group. Now, when it comes to PTSD, I mean, that is such a
It's wide.
complex
It's
it's
complex.
such a
Yeah.
complex situation, and I'm very familiar with it from working with veterans, from experiencing it personally in relationships. And so I am very sensitive to that, and the experience I'm providing, and certainly the breath work. One thing that can really trigger PTSD are sometimes complicated breathing exercises, and so I'm making sure that everything is coming from a trauma informed space
Okay.
and is going to be accessible to everybody that comes on board. And also, one of the main things, which is kind of, it's a principle of yoga, is take what's for you and leave what isn't, right?
Right.
So I tell everybody, this is an invitation. I'm asking you to do these things, but you don't have to do anything that isn't
Oh,
serving
cool.
you or doesn't feel comfortable to you. So if I say, hey, close your eyes and breathe in this way, and you go, oh, if I'm doing that, that's really getting my nervous system fired up, that's okay. Open your eyes and just sit and relax. Like, that's okay. You don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with.
That's cool.
So I think that helps a lot with those audiences.
Yeah, yeah. I think, just, I could see people maybe nervous or, scared of like, sharing and all that kind of stuff. It's like giving them options like, hey, do what's comfortable and then just enjoy that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That makes me
Yeah.
feel better.
Yeah, that's it. And with the sharing too, it's like I always say at the end, we kind of do this little kumbaya and say, hey, how'd that feel? Hey, what came up? Whatever. And, people are more than welcome to share, and a lot of them do, but, you also don't have to. And it's whatever you're comfortable with. I always say what happens on the boat stays on the boat, and it is a safe
Yeah,
space, right? So
yeah.
it's like whatever you share here with your friends and family, or sometimes strangers, if, there's people that you don't know that are on the boat. Um, that kind of stays here, and with permission maybe is when it can be talked about elsewhere. So yeah.
Nice, nice. That's really cool. So you started
Yeah.
this in 2024. You're about 2 years in now. So I imagine you've learned a few things along the way. What's worked, what hasn't worked. So what advice would you have for other entrepreneurs out there who may be reluctant entrepreneurs, sort of like you have, and sort of just kind of stumbled into this?
Yeah, I mean, I think my number one advice is knowing that you're not alone, and that there are other entrepreneurs out there struggling with maybe some of the same things you are, using community. Charleston has such an amazing community of people in so many different industries. I have found it to be a very welcoming city as far as that goes. And now that I'm on this entrepreneurial path, that has been even more reinforced. There's several different nonprofits and organizations, like Chucktown Startups, that are all about creating community and a space to say, oh my gosh, I'm beating my head against the wall trying to figure out this thing. And then
Right,
20 other people that have already done that say, this is what you need to do, or this is
right,
what works for me, or whatever. And then I go, oh my gosh, thank you. Like, you just saved me, 2 months of research, or, whatever it ends up being. And so knowing that there are other people out there that have maybe walked this walk, they might not have a business like yours. Like I said, mine is one of apparently three in the country that I can come up with at this point. So they might not know about sailing and meditation, but they know about business, and they know
right.
about how to launch a brand or how to build a website or do whatever. And so knowing that there are other people out there that are more than willing and happy to share resources and experiences, so that you don't have to be just in your own little bubble trying to figure it out on your own. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. So
Yes, that's great advice. Yeah. And I'm sure everybody, that's kind of going through this founding of a business and building and growing, it's like you go through that at one point or another. You're like, okay, how am I going to do this? And sometimes it's like you get so wrapped up in it. It's like, hey, you got to remember, maybe just reach out, see if
yeah.
others have tackled this before. And that's one of the reasons I like being a part of Chucktown Startups, because it gives you a community, an instant community to kind of do some of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. People are our biggest resource, I think, in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
collective knowledge is amazing. So
Well, and I'm really happy that you're helping people be more present. That's only going to help all of us, and it kind of
exactly.
that kind of goes with, like, a little bit of the Charleston spirit. It's like, rising tide floats all ships kind of thing. So keep
Hmm.
doing what you're
Absolutely.
doing, and come check back in a while and tell me what's happening. I'm sure things will
Yeah.
grow and change as you build your business here. So I'm sure everybody'd love to hear more about it.
Thanks, Bill. I appreciate you having me, and I hope to get you out on the water, maybe, doing some breathing.
I'll give it a try. I
Ah,
feel like it. I'll be horrible at it, but I will give it a go. So why
there's no
not?
such thing. Yeah, exactly. Thanks so much, Bill. I appreciate you.
All right, you take care.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Lowcountry Revolutionaries. Thanks for joining us as we celebrate the fearless entrepreneurs making wave in Charleston's Chucktown Startups community. I'm Bill Billotte, and it's been an honor to share these inspiring stories with you. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs a spark of Lowcountry innovation. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.